Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the football experience. Caleb.
What are you laughing
we
about? You're
we
not even in the competition. I'm getting defensive already.
yeah, I know. Everyone knows what's coming. You knew what was coming when we were planning what we were going to talk about. What we're going to start with. The glaring headline. And you know what? For a neutral, an absolutely fun game. That
Yeah,
was probably as fun as last season's City versus Real first leg match.
yeah, that was a fun game, especially without
Yeah,
Casemiro in that game. Lots of chances.
yeah. The
I don't know.
second leg was a little
Yeah,
bit more subdued,
yeah,
but even
definitely.
though it ended with a bang,
Mm.
but yeah, we got to start off there. So I'm gonna hand the reins to you and explain what happened. However, I want to get this out of the way. The first 15 minutes, I was like, holy shit, my prediction's actually right. I said that
Yeah,
like Liverpool's gonna come out blitzing, they're gonna score 2 or 3 goals, and I was like, damn, I'm like Nostradamus never has come again. But yeah, it all turned on its head.
well, you got both right, didn't you? And I think the main point because you said if they could sustain the blitz and the key moment, there's a few key moments in the game. But I think the key moment, maybe from an individual picture and maybe a little bit bigger picture, is the guy. For me, the guy. I want to see if you could guess who won this game for Real Madrid.
I was impressed with quite a few of their players.
Absolutely,
Um,
especially when it became comfortable. But who was there when the game was uncomfortable?
I'm not sure. Like a part of me is saying Camavinga, to be honest. Another part is saying Vinicius because he
Camavinga
came
was
up
a
with the first goal.
Camavinga did quite well given his age, but he was a bit of the problem of why the game was uncomfortable for me. If that's probably Look, I can't say if that's Casemiro because Casemiro probably wouldn't want to pick up the ball in those areas. But if they're playing with that structure where Cruz comes in and Modric comes in to pick up the ball, I don't think they come up under as much pressure. I think Liverpool were targeting Camavinga in the early stages, and rightly so because he's still 19 and he's playing holding midfield at Anfield in a Champions League tie. I think he's the one you want to. But once the game became a bit more comfortable, he looked
He
excellent,
looked
obviously,
yeah,
and
he looked very good.
and to be fair, he still looked good even when the game was under pressure for
Mm.
them because he still wanted to get the ball, which is obviously a great show of his character. But for me, it was the second guy. It was Vinicius. Vinicius for me, and I alluded to it on the last pod. I was starting to question: is he Real's most important player? I thought this was the game where I was like, yes, he is Real's most important player, and he has this habit. And also the bigger picture thing is Real Madrid absolutely own us. They own us. They're the only. I would say they're the only club in Europe that Liverpool would go to and say you just fucking own us. There is not. I don't think there's another one because and they said it as well. They said it in the pre-match. It's like on the commentary. It was like 20 Champions League titles between them. I'm like, you can't put them all together because
Yeah,
Real Madrid have fucking 14 of the things. It's like, oh, that's a bit unfair on them. I don't think we should be saying 20 together because they're 14. It's more than double what we have, and we're the third most winning club in the competition. And that sort of goes into. I know we beat them in a final in what 81, but just goes especially in this moment. Ever since that '09 tie, every time we've met them in the Champions League, they've had our number, and yeah, it was the same again. Even though Liverpool lifted us up in the first 20 minutes, and look, it was on the night. I'm very down, but looking back on it, it is what it is. I think it's just. I don't think it's our lowest point of the season. It might be. It might feel like that, but that's just because we actually had hope after Newcastle, after Everton, and after the first 25, 30 minutes until maybe the Alisson mistake, because the Vinny goal is a moment of brilliance. Yeah, we can be a bit better defensively, but like I alluded to on the last pod, I was like, I hope Vinny's not saving them up for Anfield, and he was saving them up because that was an unbelievable finish right in the corner. So as much as you want to look at the defending, you got to look at the finish, and the finish is unreal.
And he almost
And
scored
Benzema's
a
moved.
similar goal straight after, but Alisson actually saved it.
Yeah, Alisson saved that one from the corner, and yeah, and that was the moment for me, and that was the moment why I think Vini is now the most important player at Real Madrid, because Benzema's great, Modric is great, they're fantastic, obviously, and they romped us after that. But Vini was the guy when it was at the toughest moment, and he's been the guy who's been there all season as well. His durability's been very good this season, and you've got to be available for games though. A lot of people say the best ability is availability. So he has been available. He's of an age to be available week in, week out, put in good performances week in, week out, and sort of carry this club to where it is at the moment. Now, admittedly, that's still 8 points or whatever it is behind Barcelona at the moment. But I just think him in this moment as well, he keeps improving season after season. And with Benzema's age, and now he just keeps being in and out of the side for injuries or rest. I think Vinny has now taken up that mantle, and I guess as well, bigger picture. And I'll let you go into the game, but bigger picture as well is like when Mbappe does want to move to Real Madrid, where's his place in Real Madrid? I'm sure they'll find a place, but he's actively said he doesn't want to play up front, and that's the only place he'll have if Vinny's still at that team, because yeah, Vinny is the main man. He's one of our top franchise players, and hats off. He was the guy who sustained it for Real Madrid, and from that point they had confidence, and they capitalized on I don't even know what words to use for Liverpool's second half defensive display, or maybe not even defensive display, just winning display in the moments where it came to winning the game, i.e. Alisson receiving a back pass after seeing Courtois what he'd done up the other end, and proceeding to make not the same mistake, but pretty much the same mistake. And then the set piece at the start of the second half. I can't believe they're trying to defend a set piece like that. I don't know. Everyone's confused, but that's such an easy ball, but it's such a clever ball. Luka Modric you can't hang that up. That's just got to be around chest height and let Eder Militao just come at the front of this weird structure who has no one like in a position to block that. How could you just let a world-class player like Luka Modric just play that ball so simply? It's unbelievable.
Did you see the Carragher did a bit of analysis on that, and he was saying how like Liverpool's defense was all in a line, and the line of vision, I think by Gomez couldn't even see the ball. So some of those players that were in behind each other, they couldn't even see the ball. So obviously they're not going to see the flight of the ball until it's too late, because they were set up incorrectly. As a defensive
also
line.
that's what I'm saying about Modric's delivery, because he knew that if you are set up in a line, you have to have a bit of height to attack the ball, but there was no height on the ball, so no one could attack it. So to have a structure where you leave that space free for that exact thing to happen, they probably could have rolled that ball along the ground as well. I couldn't believe how open that channel was for that ball. And you got to think that's the plan to defend like that. So I don't know what's going on in that moment. I can't believe they've opted to defend that. So it was so easy. And then from that point, it really was so easy. We got desperate, chased it too much. But, when you're 2-0 up and all of a sudden you found yourself 3-2 down, you're reeling. So, I don't know, a bit of situational stuff, a bit of, obviously, a lot of I don't think our footballing performance was that bad, to be quite honest. But I think in the moments where it came to doing the things that you need to do to win a game of football, especially against a team who are so unbelievably clinical at taking advantage of your mistakes like Real Madrid. Let's not forget, that's pretty much what they did en route to the final. It was between moments of magic and opposition mistakes, and that's why they made it to the final and won the Champions League last season. So for the best team at exposing mistakes like that, to make so many key stupid errors, and for them to pretty much capitalize on every single one. In fact, they did capitalize on every single one. So yeah, that's how you get your 5-2. It's not the end of the world it's not our lowest point. Like I said, I thought our lowest point was those periods probably a month ago where you're just going into games with absolutely no hope because the team can't play well at all. At least we saw 35 or so minutes of really good football to put Real Madrid under a lot of pressure, but the capitulation after that is really poor, really annoying, but it is what it is.
There's a couple of points that I want to go over, and like, I guess the first one would be, it wasn't actually going to be this one, but because I had it on the top of my head, but now it's sort of rolled out. But like, there's so many like glaring things. All right, it was this. Look, I'm not actually going to completely write Liverpool off because they removed away goals. If away goals still existed, there's no way you guys are scoring. I don't believe there's any way you guys are scoring 4-5 goals against Madrid in Madrid without conceding some. Because yeah, you guys essentially need to score 5 goals in Madrid if away goals existed, with especially the way you're playing now without conceding. I don't think you guys can keep a clean sheet. But because it's only 3 goals that you need to bring it to penalties, I'm not writing you off for that matter. So if any team can do it, or has it in them to do it, they haven't exactly proven themselves this season. But if they can sort of bring back or go back a little bit to the past and find it within themselves to create a performance like that, maybe they can get 3 goals, maybe 4-1, and then take it to penalties. Maybe.
Very maybe, but they need to play a perfect game. And on the back of that, let's not forget Chelsea had them 3-0 down at home in last season's Champions League, and they were going out before that Luka Modric pass. So
yeah,
we have seen another English club who were having a rough time of it at the time that they went to the Bernabeu go and do something that we need to do. So yeah, fair call to not completely write us out of it, but like that's a 1%. I'm not giving it much more than that.
Okay, well, hang on. I know that was it 3 years ago? Yeah, 3 years ago. I know that it was similar. You needed 3 goals when you lost 3-0 to Barca, although you were playing the second leg at home. But it's similar, I guess, in terms of scoreline. But the fact that you played at home, the second leg, that is the difference maker. But still, like, and it's pretty much essentially the same core of the team that was there that night that put in that performance. So I think you can do it, but it's going to be extremely tough. Like you said, you need to play the perfect game. Secondly, you know what? Like, when I saw, I think it was the 5th goal where Modric nabbed it or nicked it off Fabinho. There was 2 things on that. It was how poor Fabinho's form has been this season to be dispossessed like that in the middle of the field. Like, I don't think you would have seen that last year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago from Fabinho. I don't think that happens. So that's one, his poor form this season. Secondly, that goal sort of makes me think that the discussion about Liverpool not having the legs, it sort of dismisses that myth, because a 37-year-old is stealing the ball and breaking through the middle of your field through Bajcetic and Fabinho to set up Vinny to then play it to Benzema. That moment makes me think the whole legs argument is a bit of bullshit and nonsense. That's my opinion, because like Modric is 6 years older than, or 7 years older than your oldest midfield player they're playing there. So I don't think we can really be using that argument. Yeah, so...
Well, no, but doesn't that kind of prove the argument? Because a guy like Modric ran through? That these guys just don't have the legs to carry out. He's not... Like,
Depends
for
how you
example,
look at
said
it.
the core's the same. The core's not quite the same because would Luka Modric... A, you say Fabinho and 100% right. He wouldn't be doing that if he was on form. But B, the guy who would be chasing him back would be Gini Wijnaldum, and he's not getting past Gini Wijnaldum. Gini Wijnaldum was our box-to-box, our engine in there.
Yeah,
So
but you
he
guys
was such a
sold
big
him.
piece
You guys sold him after what?
No, he wanted to go. He went on a free to PSG.
No, okay. But that was after that first final lost, wasn't it?
No, that was
that
after
before that?
I believe that was after the title-winning season. So he left on the title-winning season.
But he wasn't
he
there.
might have stayed for the next season. Actually,
I don't think he won the Champions
collapse
League.
season.
But he didn't win the Champions League.
He 100% won the Champions League.
I thought he left
I
before
guarantee
that.
it. No, I guarantee he won the Champions League.
Hang on.
You getting it up?
Yeah, I want to say he either didn't win. He didn't win either the Champions League or the title. I'm pretty sure.
2016 to 2021. 2020, 2021 was our collapse season, and then he left after that. Well, our last collapse season, I should say, not the current one. So he won the title, he won the Champions League. He was part of that team, and that's my point.
I thought he left.
Modric isn't running through that. He was so much of the legs in that midfield. So I think maybe on the opposite, it's more proving that fact. That the legs
it depends how you look at it. Like,
and let's also say Luka Modric showed great determination, great desire, and not just a little bit of speed as well. So like we can't discount that. Who cares that he's 37? He's still Luka Modric.
I know
he still does these things.
Like after watching that, you're like, okay, he can play till he's 40.
I'm gonna say it again, and I forgot to mention this guy because he's always there. But when the game was tough, Luka Modric was there as well. And Luka Modric, the thing that always impresses me, it's kind of like if I'm comparing and contrasting like maybe all-time great players in the NBA, I always have to take into account both sides of the ball. And Luka Modric always impresses me with his defensive work. When the game is tough, he does not shy away from his defensive work. And he does it absolutely perfectly. And then when they can start possessing the ball, he still has the energy to make the difference, like he did in that example. So, yeah, he's the ultimate sort of third man, if you want to use a big three, because I think now Vinny's the main man. No doubt Benzema's still one of the top two and can still make the difference, scores 2 goals in this game. I know one might not be credited to him by now because it looked like it was missing the target, and that's another shitty goal for Liverpool to concede as well in itself. But Modric has to be part of any big three because he's unbelievable.
You know what else though? Like, also the quality, the actual technical quality between the two midfields is like night and day. It seems, and you know what sort of proves that is the fact that they could keep possession and they could play those triangles so freely and so easily that to the point that the away crowd, you could hear them chanting "Oi!" Like, that's also another thing. Like, how does Anfield allow? I don't know whether it's 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 away, that whatever the capacity is, but how does Anfield allow you to hear on TV the away crowd? Well, that's also another thing that, like,
because they owned us and we knew it. We're supporters. We're
the
smart
crowd,
supporters. We know when we have to bow down, and we had to bow down. This Real Madrid team absolutely owns us, and they did it again.
Especially the second half.
No, just in general. I'm talking about in general. We went into this match. We were 2-0 up. Let's not forget, and a lot of that was Anfield. So, like, the way we started that game and the way, I don't know, we thought maybe it wouldn't continue because we know eventually you can't sustain that energy in a game. And even when we're at peak Liverpool, we could have sustained it for longer, but we still couldn't sustain. And that's the difference as well, to allow a team to dominate us in the second half shows how much we've dropped off from last season and how much the legs have gone, the engine's gone.
Yeah.
Because last season, I thought a lot of the games we won came down to if a team was playing to our level, they couldn't sustain it as long as us, and we would win a lot of games 60 minutes on or add goals to score lines at that time because we could just keep going. There was no doubt we couldn't keep going in this game. After 35 minutes, and obviously the Alisson mistake, which is another key moment that we need to suggest after the Vidi goal, is a crusher, really.
Yeah, but at the same time, it almost feels like it's not karma, but it's like it's almost like because Courtois had pretty much a very similar oopsie moment.
Yeah,
it sort of feels like that. Those two moments cancel each other out.
But I will say I thought we were worth a 2-0 lead at that point of the game, to be fair, because we blitzed them. And Salah in front of goal has been, oh my God, so bad. But he had a really good chance before that as well.
Yeah, I think there was a goal line clearance.
After that, the goalmouth scramble. So yeah, I thought we were good value for a 2-goal lead going into halftime, but we make a stupid mistake and we give Vidi too much space as well. And all of a sudden it's 2-2 and then I don't know, this game situationally, we let it get away. That's why I said footballing wise, I thought we were okay in the game. So at least there was that positive to take from it, but the moments where you have to be concentrated, the moments where you just can't lose your concentration and lapse, we just did not do well enough at all. And that coupled with the team you play against just killed us on the night.
Before I want to go through an exercise with you, but before I go through that, do you think Madrid wins the Champions League again? Because playing like this, I reckon it's actually possible that they take it away again.
Yeah, they do. They're somewhat repeating the act, and maybe even more devastatingly with the confidence of champions. With Vini slightly evolved, and it doesn't look like Modric has dropped off. And when Benzema plays, he still plays well. So yeah, that's what I thought as well. I'm like, this team now has to be right up there. Probably, I don't know. I don't want to get too carried away with this result because, like I say, they did play well, but they played well when the game became comfortable and Liverpool let the game become comfortable for them. So they're gonna. Well, you'd think they'd have to come through tougher tests than Liverpool, or at least what this game produced. But yeah, coming away from it, you just think they're probably in that bracket. For me, still just below Napoli. We'll talk about them.
But I think their toughest
probably.
test. Their toughest test is probably Napoli. Out of all the teams that are remaining, I don't think Man City's their toughest test.
I agree, and I think there's a good reason for that, and we'll probably talk about that when we talk about Napoli.
However, I want to go through a little bit of an exercise with you, and I didn't, and this is completely unprepared, and I wanted it to be unprepared, but I think a lot of pundits have been saying Liverpool need to clear out 5 or 6 midfielders or players in general, but mostly midfielders. So I'm just going to go through the team, including the subs that was part of that game, the Real Madrid game, and I'm going to name the players, and you just put a valuation on them. So, like, for instance, Fabinho, how much would you value him for? Because let's just say that your top 3 targets are Guardiola, Rice, and Bellingham. They're not going to come there for less than 100 mil. I don't think. Maybe Rice, 80, because I think he has a year left. But still, you're looking at around 100 for all 3. So let's say 300 mil. Let's say FSG give 100, 150. So you need to gather another 150 to 200 to get those 3. Obviously, you might sign, a couple of players that are like for like 5, 10, 15, 20 mil, but we're not going to worry about that. Let's just go like marquee signings. And I believe that with Guardiola, I've been saying it for a while, Guardiola plays left centre-back next to Tsimikas or Robertson, and shift Van Dijk over to the right, because that is the weakest side. Like either Gomez and Arnold or Matip. Matip's been okay, but that side with Arnold, you need to plug that gap, and I think Van Dijk will plug that gap if you switch him over to that side and put Guardiola next to him. So I'm going to name the players. You give a price tag so we can try, and we'll try and keep a running total. So Henderson, keep or sell, and
so do you? But do you not want? Do you not want to ask the question before that of whether you think that's the right move or not? Because I'm not convinced that's the right thing to do.
Switching Van Dijk over, or what? Or getting those three players?
That was fine. I agree with that. But
okay.
In terms of the targets and the transfer policy in this summer, in terms of trying to get that kind of money for those three players and essentially gutting your squad, but having a really strong starting 11. Now, I could be convinced that might be the right strategy because there is a chance that we don't have European football next season. But if we don't have European football, how are we attracting these players when they're going to have the pick of clubs who do have European and Champions League football?
Yeah, because...
So that's the conundrum for me. But yeah, I'm happy to keep going and value them and go through the cases individually.
Because that's the thing, like, the two players like Guardiola and Bellingham, they, especially after both of their World Cup performances, they are on Real Madrid's radar. You don't know who is the higher sort of pick, because I think Guardiola might be, because the Real Madrid's defense is aging more so than their midfield. They've already got Tchouaméni and Camavinga in there, and Valverde can play in the center of midfield, or like just off the center of midfield. So I'm not sure how high on the list Bellingham is, but he might be, because Kroos and Modric are both on the wrong side of 30. Modric more so, but Kroos is like 34. So yeah, maybe Bellingham is really high on their priority. But let's just say,
I'll just add to that as well. I think Guardiola should be, because he's probably the best young centre back, like truly young centre back to build around. He's the best bedrock out there in Europe. And two, I don't think Bellingham would fit the profile of the central midfielder they should be looking for. And the one who pops out to me straight away is, I think they should be looking at a João Paulinho. I think they should be trying to get him from Fulham, and I think he would complement that midfield well. And then you also have the option of starting to push Tchouaméni further up the pitch, which he's very good at as well. So I'd be looking at someone like that. The unheralded sort of signing, kind of like when they got Xabi Alonso from Liverpool, and it was just like, they were all saying, we don't really need him, or he's not a Galactico, but he was so essential to everything they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It could, yeah. And also, he'd come cheaper as well. But let's go through our little exercise. So, Jordan Henderson, keep or sell? And if sell, how much for?
Nah, keep.
Keep.
Because you're not going to get enough money for him to justify selling him, I don't think. So I'd keep him.
Fabinho.
Interesting one. I'd probably...
He's 29, turning 30 next season.
What kind of price do you think you could get for Fabinho?
On this season's form?
Exactly. What we bought him for? 35?
Max
I think
30.
We got maybe 40.
Max 30.
Max 30.
Max.
Exactly. No, I'd actually rather keep him and see, because he is the right side of 30. Is this just a blip of the season? And then we can have our proper Fabinho back. So, yeah, again, I don't think the reward of selling him is worth taking that money.
Bajcetic you keep. He's only 18. Yeah. James Milner most likely retiring, and you're not going to get anything for him.
That's why you keep Jordan Henderson, because he fulfills that role now.
Yeah. Naby Keita. I'm not sure if he's actually out of contract or not. He might have been.
Yeah, he's out of contract. I'm pretty sure he's out of contract.
So he's just leaving.
So, yeah, he'll be leaving.
I'm gonna put Firmino in here, because there's been a lot of rumors about him leaving. I'm just gonna chuck him in there. I know he's a forward, not a midfielder.
I'm not sure if he's in the same boat as Naby Keita, or did he sign an extension recently, but he might be available for a free as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not sure if he has a year left, or if he's available on a free, like whether he had a year left.
Either way, you're not getting much for him. You get like 15 mil maybe.
That's weird. I'm gonna chuck in Adrian, the goalkeeper.
Man, Adrian, you're getting like $500,000 for him if you sell him.
Maybe a mil.
Sell him.
Okay, so but get rid of him. Oxlade-Chamberlain.
I think his contract ends.
So far, we have added 0 to the kitty.
No, everything around the edges, there's not much there. Apart from it's either players you want to keep. There's like the questions of Fabinho. I guess Henderson might be a question as well. But like the rest, no, you're not getting much for him.
Curtis Jones, keep. He's what 18? He's like 19, 20.
I'm unfazed, but he's stalled and he hasn't progressed after being pretty promising a few years ago. So yeah, I'm unfazed either way.
How much could you get for him? You reckon 15 mil?
Max. That'd be like giving someone the Jordan Ibe treatment and extracting blood from a stone, like we did with Bournemouth for Jordan Ibe.
Harvey Elliott, keep.
Yeah, I guess so. He's a good squad fella.
But in all honesty,
he wants to be there.
He's probably been one of your best midfielders this season, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
another telling thing.
That tells the story.
Carvalho, you just signed this summer.
Yeah, he's fine. Keep him, whatever. But see, like, it's a depressing exercise. There's no assets there that we're going to want to move on. It's either core or it's who cares. And then that's why I think
the remaining players.
The wrong tactic to go for 3 players. This squad needs a bit more of a reboot than that.
Yeah, and then out of all the players I pretty much went through, there's only Matip and Kelleher left on the bench. I'm not sure who else is part of the squad, but this is like the entire team. Oh, Joe Gomez, you'd probably get rid of him as well. But do you keep Mo Salah or do you sell him?
Depends what offer comes in. But I'm prepared to listen.
But look at that. I actually thought, going into this, I thought, okay, maybe you'll be able to scrape up maybe 40, 50 mil, and it's like you can barely, because you said unless the right offer comes in for Fabinho, you're not to keep him. Unless 30 mil comes in, keep him. And then everyone else, you're not gonna get. They're either leaving on a free or retiring, or you're not gonna get it, or you sell them for nothing. So, unless there's major investment by FSG, which in the past they haven't proven to do it.
It doesn't need major investment. It just needs
300
That's
mil.
That's what we've done.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. We don't need those players, and those players, honestly, Bellingham maybe could look to come to Liverpool, and I wouldn't criticize the move. But the other guys, I don't know why. I would question why they'd want to come to Liverpool at this moment, to be quite honest. So, and even Bellingham, I'd question it a bit. So I don't think it should be our strategy. I don't think it should be the strategy of the players who have been mentioned to come to Liverpool. And I think, like I've kept saying, this needs reboot 1.0 when Klopp first came to the club. Now the question is, does Klopp want to stay for that rebuild? And does he still have it in him to stay for that rebuild? Well, that's something he needs to look inside himself and see, do I want that? Because that is what it's come. Oh man, it's an interesting one, because is that what it's come to? Because another reason why I'm not all doom and gloom about this result is because we're somewhat back in the top 4 race. And I remember, I keep saying this and then I keep getting off it because we're so bad this season. But I keep saying 2 seasons ago, it felt this doomy and gloomy around the midway point of that season. And somehow we still came in at 3rd. And again, I said, who do we need to overtake? Well, admittedly, that season there were 2 spots up for grabs. This season, there's only 1 spot up for grabs because United should be so good that they're far and away. But the teams ahead of us, they don't scare me, especially after we've just done the double over Newcastle. They were the only one who had any potential to scare me. Tottenham certainly don't scare me. So I'm not saying we're going to overtake them, but there's still a chance that we overtake those teams and finish 4th. And if we finish 4th, who knows? Maybe next season we're just like the team we were last season after that disastrous season 2 years ago. Now, you can't keep going in that cycle, but I'm just saying there's still a possibility that that's what happens at the end of all of this.
Yeah, but you guys still need a major refresh. But like you said,
No, we do need signings, but that will dictate how many signings and which areas we need as well.
Yeah.
Because then it might not be such a massive rebuild.
well, I think we have identified it is the centre back position, and it is the midfield as well.
Yeah, it's both of them. It's probably more competition in fullback as well. And
someone to back up Trent or to provide competition for him.
Competition more than anything than just backup, because he knows he's on this team sheet at the moment. I think he needs a bit more competition to keep improving, and Robbo to an extent as well.
What's happened to Simicast? Because he doesn't play at all.
I don't think Simicast offers good enough competition, man. I just think he does boneheaded things. He's never really grown into a Liverpool shirt, and he's one I'd sell. Actually, I'd sell Simicast to get a better left back in there.
Well, there's rumours that apparently Tierney might be on his way out of Arsenal. But then,
I want him and Robbo competing against each other.
But then, why would Arsenal sell him to Liverpool? And also, if Tierney's second choice at Arsenal, why would he then go to be potentially second choice at Liverpool?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that, like, from a personal standpoint, if you're Tierney, it's like that move doesn't make sense.
It's just sideways, isn't it?
Yeah, if not going down.
Yeah, of course. Like you get to say that now.
Yeah. But I don't know whether you guys go for the three marquee signings. Although I'm not sure Rice would be. I'm not sure he would come to Liverpool. Like, there hasn't been any like rumors or discussions about it. There's been more discussions about Rice to Arsenal or Rice to Chelsea, because wasn't he at Chelsea's academy?
I think in the bigger picture sort of thing, I don't think this result warrants this conversation, to be quite honest. I just thought it was a really bad night. Everything that we could have done wrong, we did wrong. And everything that we did wrong, Real Madrid capitalised on. So I think the bigger discussion becomes now, and obviously it's the Premier League form. And now we start discussing, and then if it looks like we're not going to challenge for top four or finish in top four, then we start having this. But it's all on the Premier League, of course, because we've obviously, we're pretty much out of the Champions League. But that's what I'm saying. I just don't think this game warrants that kind of big picture stuff, because this was just a game at the end of the day. It's not our whole season, I don't think. I think we're at least back on the track. If we were still performing like we did against Brighton a month ago, then 100%, like, we're still asking those same questions, where to here now for Liverpool? And there's a good chance we're still asking them at the end. But there's also a chance that we're not asking them at the end, because our form's been more positive, the football's been better, those front three are starting to click. I mean, we haven't mentioned Nunez' great goal and Salah's great pass for it, and Salah's starting to create a bit. I wish he could still finish, but apparently he can't anymore. But Cody Gakpo's movement in between the lines, his pressing, I thought he was really impressive for the 35 minutes. So, yeah, it's not all doom and gloom, but it was a dark night, that's for sure.
Yeah, well,
I'm ready to move off Liverpool.
Well, we'll end up with this. Even if you guys do miss out on top six, you can still guarantee European football by winning the FA Cup.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
You want to give yourself a chance by being in the Europa League, but obviously we're obviously out of the FA Cup, so
wait,
that's one for future seasons.
Yeah, you lost to Brighton.
Beat us with a Matoma fucking goal.
Oh, they knocked out Arsenal as well, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Or was that the Carabao
City
Cup?
City.
Oh yeah, that was City. Carabao Cup. Brighton knocked us out. But yeah, there's no shame in being and losing to Brighton. I feel this season. Yeah. Okay. Well, I got egg on my face after that statement, but technically I don't, because maybe it was like a little bit of a backhand compliment at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. It was another dig.
Yeah. Well, dig when you can, because those times won't last for long. But on your mention.
So I think I remember saying that at the start of the season, and now look where United are. I think I'll say that about United as well. I kept saying it to our... Yeah, go on.
Yeah, but you mentioned Klopp. Well, he signed a 3-year extension last year, so that
Yeah,
So,
something like
but I
that.
think he already had a year left. So then this then takes this like now it's 3 years. So it's this season plus like at the end of this season it's plus 3 years, I believe. That's how it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, if
So
that's how it's structured.
so that means he's at least when he signed, he was planning to be part of a rebuild. So let's see how that all works out. Um, which game do you want to touch on next? There's the other English team.
Interested to see where you take us. Yeah, take
Well,
us
I like I told you, I only watched City Leipzig and Liverpool Real Madrid, and so we can touch on that then. Well, we mentioned it before we went on. Like this was a stark contrast between what we saw the day before. That first half was a snooze fest. Like I was watching that after you come away from a 7 goal. I wouldn't say thriller because thriller would mean 4-3, not 5-2. But a 7 goal, like
dramatic
yeah,
encounter.
like. But after you come away from a 7 goal match, and everything in between was exciting as well. Like it wasn't like it was exciting football pretty much from 0 to 90 minutes. To then go away to watching that first half of City Leipzig, you're like, I want my money back because it's just, and especially seeing that from City, like City were just so slow, so.
Can you imagine what a good City would have done to that Leipzig team in the first half? A good City would have been 3-0 up at halftime
they beat
against
them.
that Leipzig.
They beat them 6-3 last year in the group stage, didn't they?
Yeah, at home. But
Yeah.
like that's what I'm saying. Like Leipzig was so bad themselves in this game, and City just never rose to beat them properly. And one guy who did rise was your boy.
My boy.
What a great header over Ruben
man.
Diaz as well.
Dude, and the leap was like Ronaldo-esque. Like it was like, man, like, I didn't know he can jump that high. And then
He's You
saw-
I wouldn't say he's.
go on.
I wouldn't
Go
say
on.
he's like. I would say he's cheeky physical, but he is an absolute beast. Like he
Yeah.
can do everything. He's quick, strong, can leap. Like he's a bit like Theo Hernandez, like that for me. It's like they're not cheeky physical, but like you got to see it because they're just unbelievably physical.
But
Way to
like
go, sorry.
I think even some City players were like claiming, oh, like he pushed him down. Like no, when he was coming back down, that's when he made contact with the player and put his hands on his shoulders. Not when he didn't leap up off him. So like he made that leap without like just using his own momentum and leg force. Like no assistance from like jumping off a player's back or whatever. So and to your point, like he's that physical at 20 years old or 21. Like imagine what he's going to be like when he actually matures into his body. Like at like 25, 27. Like if he keeps going on that trajectory, you're going to be like, dude, he's probably going to overtake what we saw with Van Dijk like 2-3 seasons ago. Because Van Dijk seemed like an absolute specimen.
It's looking a little bit possible, and I didn't think I'd say that because peak Van Dijk was ridiculous.
Yeah, well, onto the game though.
Anyway, we were trying to avoid the subject.
Yeah, onto the game though. City were poor, and then the second half as well. They were even more poor because Leipzig actually came out and tried to play. They didn't try to sit back and just like they invite pressure onto themselves. It seemed, and they actually tried to attack City and they probably realized this City team, we can get at them. Like this is not the City team from last season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons ago. This is a City team that's sort of resembling like I don't know if like sort of like a wounded gazelle, or like there's something about them where you can smell blood, And they're not as solid and godly and immune as what they were before. They've lost that aura.
Where do you point the finger at for that? Because I think I've given my views on where I point the finger at for that. I'm interested to get where.
I don't know. I don't know if I can blame Haaland because I saw a couple of times in the game like Haaland would make runs and he wouldn't get the ball, and I saw frustration on him, like in his reaction because I paid a little bit closer attention to him, and yeah,
we've seen this since the World Cup, haven't we?
Yeah,
I think he's a bit more expressive in his frustration since then.
So I can't blame him.
Do you simplify it down to is it a battle between Haaland and Pep? Is that where it is, or is it every like with most of these things? I think you can give out your blame pie, can't you? And I'm interested to get your version of the blame pie for why we're not seeing City at their free flowing best. But let's not forget that they're still in the FA Cup, they're still chasing the league title, and they're still chasing the Champions League. And 1-1 away at Leipzig isn't the worst result, and you'd expect them to come through this tie. So they're still in everything. Let's put it into perspective, but at the same time, they're not what we expect City to be, especially after they added Erling Haaland. So, yeah, I don't know. Could you come up with a blame pie off the top of your head where you're portioning your parts of the blame?
I'm not too sure if I could even... Maybe you can blame Pep because Pep has the experience of working with Lewandowski, who physicality-wise is similar to Haaland. Like, he has all the physical... Like, they're probably around the same height, same build. Obviously, the technical differences and I guess the runs they make are going to be different and whatnot. Like, their football IQ is going to be different and the way that they want to play is going to be different. Like, for instance, Lewandowski might be more willing to hold up the ball, whereas Haaland wants to run in behind because he's younger, he's 21. He has the legs to try and run in behind and run onto through balls. But Guardiola has the experience of working and successfully working with a big man up front with Lewandowski. I don't know if I can, and I don't know if I can blame Pep entirely. But,
no, I don't.
But maybe
that's
you
why
can.
I'm trying to portion it, because I don't think any sort of thing or anyone gets the entirety of the blame.
Yeah.
But I think if you go through your options, I think you got Pep, I think you got Haaland, I think you've got fatigue from previous seasons. I think you've got performances from the team in general. I don't know. Off the top of my head, what would I go? I'd probably go Pep 50% because I think he needs to shoulder a lot of this and the majority of this.
Well, he is the manager.
Because he is the manager, of course, and I haven't been impressed with how they've been using Haaland since the start of the season. I'm not 100% sure what's changed, but I think he has a big part in what's changed in terms of changing the tactics, in terms of the fallout with João Cancelo and now losing arguably the best fullback in the world. I know he wasn't having a great season, but I don't know. City are...
Is there a fallout with Foden as well? Because Foden has barely played since the World Cup.
I haven't heard about a fallout, but he definitely hasn't been
barely
playing much,
played.
Obviously. It took Ruben Diaz forever to get back in the team as well, let's remember. It took... Kevin De Bruyne has been in and out recently as well himself. So... I don't know, the Rico Lewis experiment, Julian Alvarez they still have there, who's a World Cup winner, still can't integrate him properly. I don't know, I keep saying this, but if I would not attribute much of the blame to Haaland because I actually think he's the main reason why they're as good as they are this season rather than the other way around. I don't think he's holding them back. Be interesting, can we flip the question and can we ask our Man City, and is Pep holding Haaland back? I don't know. That's the day and the age we live in terms of individual superstars. So I think, I don't know. Haaland doesn't seem like that kind of character. If he had maybe the Mbappe character, I think he'd be looking at this a lot more closely if it was Mbappe in that position and they didn't feel. Or maybe Haaland just is happy with his. I don't think, like your point, I don't think he can be happy with his performances recently because of the frustration he's showing. So yeah, I wonder at what point that becomes introspection. I wonder if it does at all because City are on. They're still on a great path. They're not. They might be walking just to the side of the path through all the rough stuff, but they're still following the path towards all their goals this season. So after like how City like would it be if at the end of all of this we're talking about them winning maybe two of the major prizes, maybe a treble because they know how to do it and Pep knows how to do it. So
Just
I don't know. Yeah, go on.
just quickly, do you like this sort thought just came to my head? Do you think like Haaland would actually suit Liverpool style more so than Man City's? Because
Definitely.
where he'd suit that rock and roll style, running in behind, running into the channels, and because Liverpool don't really focus on like integrating the striker and playing into feet as much, like not so much, like because they did it with Firmino to an extent, but like overall not really.
I think he would be good. I don't think he would have fit into that Firmino role when we were playing with Mane and Salah. And I know we still got Salah there, but I don't know. I think the style of football, maybe not the personnel at the moment, but the style of football would suit him better. But Klopp is very demanding in the press, and obviously we've seen it with Gakpo. He's very demanding in where he tries to get his player to pick up the ball, and we see it in the fact that he plays Gakpo over Nunez through the centre. So Klopp probably wants a bit more subtlety from his centre forward. So my initial reaction was to nod because of the style of football. I think Haaland is better in a counter-attacking side and B, a more unpredictable side where he can get more service. But the team are willing to play off second balls and willing to counter-press off the ball that's tried to play in behind to Haaland. I think Haaland would thrive off Trent's delivery from deep, absolutely, and him looking for him often. But yeah, it's that style that made me nod in agreement initially because I don't think Pep wants to relinquish that control, and we're seeing this battle within City as to what to do because we have maybe the best striker in the world, but to play to his strengths, we have to play a completely different way, and whether that's the players not prepared to do that, whether that's Pep not prepared to do that, but whatever it is at the moment, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look solid defensively. It doesn't look like they're always in control of the game. And it's not making Haaland look better. So I don't know what it's accomplishing at this stage.
Yeah, see, I don't think Haaland would... he doesn't thrive off the indirect game that City play. He would thrive off...
The over-controlled game.
Yeah, he'd thrive off a more direct game.
It's hard to say he doesn't because he's got a shitload of goals to this point of the season.
The more control game that they're showing post World Cup, pre World Cup, they looked like they were going to win everything.
They were fluid, and I thought they were still playing more of a 4-3-3 compared to this 3 at the back that they're playing now because it just allowed them to take advantage of transition situations so much better with the angles of passing and the fact that they had a solid back four. João Cancelo wasn't performing defensively, but you still had that structure in place. And then Pep, I can't pinpoint the moment he got spooked off from doing that, but at some point he did get spooked off. It might have been Anfield. It might have been in that league game where I saw the first real back three from him. I know it would shift into a back three at times before that, but the first time I saw it as an actual back three was that game, and ever since then, I don't think City have been the same. Now, City still have the capability of thrashing teams on their day, but then they also now have this vulnerability that they've shown in recent weeks. And I keep saying, I think tactically, I'm not impressed with what Pep's doing at all. Because to my point, I don't see what it's accomplishing. And when it's not accomplishing anything, surely you have to look at something else. And I know City fans will be like, well, why don't you get on Klopp more for what he's doing? I've had my time to get on Klopp. I've been doing it every time we have a time like this. I'm on Klopp for basically being arrogant in how he thinks we should play and not changing it up. Maybe inflexible. Maybe just not. I don't know, tactically smart enough to do it. I don't know. He doesn't trust his tactical smarts, but Yeah, well, maybe tactically, definitely, I hold Pep to a higher standard, and that's why I'm so disappointed with what I'm seeing from City this season.
Well, you were getting on Klopp even last season when you guys were 14 points behind City.
Yeah, I'm a bit critical at times.
But I remember you getting on him even last season because he didn't show that ability to change the team or to adapt, and then all of a sudden after a couple of weeks they're in the title hunt. They're chasing down 4 trophies by not changing anything.
Yeah, so I'm not always right. That's for sure.
But in a way, maybe you were early in your call.
Yeah, it's well, you see what's happening this season. It's all
Yeah.
good when everything's going. All right, okay. I want to take us into because I think how much are we talking? Do we want to talk about City? And I think we're finished on
I
this
think we're
game, aren't
done. We should touch on
we?
the
Yeah,
other 2 games.
we will. And we'll probably do them a bit quicker because they're not ones that you watched. But here's how bad Leipzig v City was in the first half. I went into because we did that thinking exercise last pod. I went into another one like by myself, and I want to run it past you. I want to start getting these ideas out there because I feel like when I get these ideas out there, it makes me think about them more, and then I become more clear in what I think from that point on. So the theory I came up with, and I think I said it about Rashford, and we'll talk about his situation last pod. And I said, I think my theory now is the players nowadays are more sensitive than they were back in the day, even maybe 10, 15 years ago. And what I mean by that, I don't mean like in their feels and all emotional and stuff, although some may be. So I think you'll get those kind of players wherever. I'm not talking about that. But they're sensitive to the game of football and how it's played. So what I think's happened with the sort of academy system becoming so sophisticated with coaching, with tactical developments, physical developments, and how to work with your body, and get it in its peak optimal condition. All of these advancements where we're becoming more and more perfect. I think obviously that means that we're playing football and we're trying to do it in a more perfect way. Whereas 10, 15, 20 years ago, football was played more imperfectly. It was more unpredictable. There were more situations that could arise from just game to game because players weren't so regimented in their tactical discipline. They weren't so advanced in what they were trying to do tactical. They weren't so knowledgeable on every little thing that they were trying to do tactically. But what they were knowledgeable in was reacting to the situations that were presented, the more unpredictable situations that were presented to them on the pitch. And I want to use an example of something that's become really prevalent in coaching, I don't know, ever since I've been learning to be a coach. And that's like using passing sort of drills where you've got a set sort of the ball goes from here to here, here to here, here to here. And it's just that, and you're doing it repetition. Now, I get some of the benefits of that. It's obviously good to repeat passing, touch. It's obviously good to introduce concepts of how you want your team to play, everything like that. But it's predictable, and it's perfect. And that's what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to get it perfect. You're trying to get these players to do the touch perfectly, the pass perfectly, the movement perfectly. And it's all very controlled in a controlled environment. But what happens in the game when something unpredictable happens? And something happens in this not very controlled environment that is a match of football. And I think nowadays, I think teams and players nowadays don't react well to those situations that are sort of outside their conceptualization of what they've learned through this sort of perfection of the game and the way they're trying to play the game perfectly. Now, admittedly, I think the highs are higher than they ever have been. Like the football that can be played is probably objectively to a higher standard than it's ever been played because of the perfection, because of physical perfection, the tactical perfection, everything like that. But when the game goes away from that, I don't think players react to that. And that sort of like leads me to think that's maybe why we don't have as many good defenders in the game, or as many like of those hard-nosed defenders that we're talking about. And also it makes me believe maybe that's why players are a bit more unwilling to play with knocks and a little pain nowadays, because it's not perfect. There's not perfect conditions to do that. Now, I know a lot of medical staffs won't let them play with pain anyway. But I've got to think when players were super durable back in the day and they were probably playing through a bit of pain. And yeah, in the long term, that's probably not great. But obviously, that's just another example of, I think, how it's changed, where players want everything to be perfect around them. Obviously, the environment and then the game itself. So that's how bad the first half was. That's where my mind went. So I'm interested to see if you can unpack any of that.
You know, the first thing that came to mind when you were talking about all that is the game of chess. And chess is all about tactics. There isn't really anything there regarding like there's no physical supremacy. Like I can play against a child, and the child can beat me. So it's all about tactics and having the brain power essentially to beat someone, and not making mistakes, obviously. And what you were saying in regards to the evolution of sports science, medicine, and all that, it's bringing a lot of players physically to a similar playing field. Like obviously you will get your anomalies like an Mbappe, who is probably one of the quickest footballers in the world right now. There's probably some up there like that are close to him, like Walker's close, Vinny, etc. But essentially, a lot of players are probably around the same level in terms of physical prowess. So then the only thing that really separates, at least from a manager's perspective, the only thing that would really separate players, if you can eliminate also the technical disparities, will then be the tactical disparity between managers. So if you can outwit the opposing manager with something something brilliant tactically, then that's what's going to win games in the future, rather than players themselves winning games like what we saw in the past. That brings into essence the academy system. If all of them are being brought up the same way, and you have less kids learning on the street, less kids learning in school, playing football, because that's how we first learned to play football. I didn't start playing for a club until I was 11 years old, but I was playing in school every day at lunchtime. So that's where I got my training from, essentially. Like I was self-taught, and I'm sure it's the same for a lot of players, especially here in Europe, where everything's so close by. You can catch up with 10 friends and go down to the local field and play a game and whatnot. Whereas at least in Australia, like everything's so far apart. You need a bike ride, or you need to catch a train, or you need to be dropped off by your parents. So these academies are essentially they're teaching all the same technical abilities. So then it's going to eliminate the technical disparity most likely after a while as well. So then, to my point, the tactical disparity between the managers is what's going to separate football games.
Yeah, can I? And I want to ask you a question off the back of that. Do you think then that managers have somewhat outkicked their coverage? Because if that's the way of thinking, and I think that's a valid point and a valid theory on probably why, like on the last pod, I complained about Pep and Nagelsmann going with these tactical innovations as they see them. Although I am a believer that there's nothing new under the sun, and that they'll get their ideas from somewhere else, and it would have been seen before. But what I mean is, like, do you think managers, because in my belief, I don't think that it's up to managers to win games. I think it's up to players. It always has been, and I think it always will be up to players to win games of football. The manager's job is merely to put the players in the best position to succeed. And they're indebted to the players. They work for the players, not the other way around for me. The players do not work for the manager. So I think if that's the thinking behind it, I don't know, I think it's a bit arrogant, because the managers aren't the ones on the pitch. It's the players who are the ones on the pitch, and the players have to be the stars of the show. They have to be first and foremost in everyone's mind as to who is going to win a game of football and who's going to come out with trophies and who's not, because it comes down to the quality. Now, obviously, you get different variations of that. Sometimes a tactically well-drilled team can outlast another team, and maybe it could last a whole season. But you got to think over time. I think quality is the thing that tells. So I don't know. Do you see it that way, or do you think are you happy with the way, if that is the case, the way that maybe managers are becoming more prevalent in our thoughts of how to win football games?
Well, in the last couple of years, once we started getting into coaching, one of the things that sort of came to us that we actually, I don't think when we were playing and when we were being coached as juniors, I never came across it, but the whole like trigger passes or the triggers in games. So like when a certain player would receive the ball, that's your trigger to close down as a right wing or as a striker, or when your own player received the ball, depending on what position he received the ball in and depending on what way he was facing, that would be your trigger to run. So that's where I'm thinking, like, if that's being introduced now, like those triggers to make a move, that is then removing the onus on the player to be an individual and to win the game on their own. Because if you're already tactically set up, and like there's footage, like teams study the opposing team's footage and they're like, okay, when this happens, then this is going to happen, or like, and obviously you now have analysts and mathematicians working for football clubs, so like the probabilities of a player receiving the ball in this area and them turning out on their left foot or on their right foot is going to be this. So they're starting to be ingrained with that information now. So yeah, that's the I think we're removing the onus on players essentially to win games.
Yeah, and I think I always try to, when I am coaching, I try to avoid coaching in that way. Now you've got to set up a team structure obviously against the ball, and you've got to have. I ideally want everyone buying in and playing with principles. I think that's the main thing. It's about coaches to put principles on something. So I try not to do, all right, when the ball goes here, you press there, you do this, you do that. Whereas it's more, okay, if the ball goes there, and then maybe their body shape isn't quite right, then you go and press. If their body shape's fine, then we sit off. It's principles like that. It's like, all right, can you cut the passing lane to the fullback? Can you cut the passing lane to the holding midfielder when the centre back has the ball? But if not, can you get back into shape? It's just giving guidelines, but it's not saying you have to do this, you have to do that. All it's saying is you have to. I try and go by 3 principles when I'm coaching. That's, you have to work hard, you have to try and outwork the opponent, you have to play as a team, you always have to be there for each other, and you have to play the full game with concentration and intensity and focus. That's all I ask in terms of the overall principles, and everyone has to be on the same page of that. Now, within that, after that, it's yes, setting up team structures, and yes, putting players in the best position to succeed, but it's about, by doing that, it's about letting players' individual characteristics shine. So basically, you're just like, you're in this position, you know the principles we play with, you know, obviously you're working on specific things through the week, maybe to deal with an opponent. But on the whole, it's just like, you know who you're working with in front and behind. You're starting to know their tendencies. And let's put you in as many unpredictable situations as possible so that you can start to look at these scenarios and then you can learn from them and then take them into the next game. So it's not... And I think, look, we got to say this. I think most, or at least a lot of good coaches out there probably coach it the same way. I think a lot of good coaches, maybe I don't like the style, but there are a lot of coaches who will get good results and produce good players by coaching the other way. But my thoughts and my feelings on it is, if you're doing it in that way, where you're giving everyone exactly set things, and then you take that player out of that environment, what use was it of you doing those exact set things in that place? You've got to learn to play the game in general, and then like this whole discussion is about, learn to not be so sensitive to situations and learn to adapt and react. And I guess on the bigger picture, if we link it back to football right now, while I'm very obviously down about the result Liverpool suffered, the biggest throwback team who play in that way are Real Madrid. Look at how they handled the Anfield Challenge. They got blitzed in the opening, but but they reacted to it. The game wasn't perfect for them, but they reacted to it. And then they had players like Luka Modric. They had players like Karim Benzema. They had players like Vinny, who inserted their individual characteristics and qualities into the game. And I don't think Ancelotti has ever been known as a manager who's like a Conte, who's shouting the instruction every step of the way on the pitch. I think he just puts players in the best position to succeed. And they go out there and they do that because these players have great individual character. And Ancelotti knows to not outkick his coverage because his coverage is just these players are the ones who are the stars. It's not me. So, yeah, I think I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
Yeah, something just came back to memory. I saw a post that apparently Man United sent, I think it was 8 analysts to Barcelona's game from the weekend. And that sort of goes to prove my point that the game is becoming more analytical. Like, why would you send 8 analysts? So that means that they probably had a player each essentially to monitor and to try to pick up on their tendencies. Like how to what I was saying, like what is the probability of the player turning to the left when they receive the ball from this position or turning to the right, or etc. So it's becoming more and more like that, where you're having analysts feeding data to managers, and then they're working individually with players to set them up for games, and that's where you're taking the individuality out of football, essentially.
I would in that specific instance, I would actually argue against that. I think you're tailoring your instructions and your information to the individual and putting them in the best position to succeed. But I would say that they're saying to the players, this is the data. But I imagine they're also saying this doesn't mean that this is 100% going to happen. It's like we're arming you with things that you should know, but we're also not telling you have to play in this exact way. We're just giving you the weapons, the tools, and I think that does individually. That's tailored to individuals. So I think in that instance, if that's what they've done, that in fact is for me good coaching practice and what you should be doing with individuals.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying that it's bad, but like it's probably with that though. It probably is once you start going to that level. Like there's a difference between like me watching a 90-minute game and then solely focusing on Haaland, and then there's a difference between an analyst and then like me saying, okay, so these tend to be his tendencies, and then there's a difference between an analyst actually analyzing his game and saying, oh, he's taking 100 touches on his left foot and 20 touches on his right foot. There's a 30% chance that he's going to turn left. There's a 40% chance that he's going to turn right, and like whatever chances he's going to just that he's going to come back towards his own goal. Like
players have already tuned out. If that's what you're telling them. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't care about that.
But they probably are going in depth.
No, of course, it's up to the manager now. To translate that message.
That wasn't I don't think that was the case even 5 years ago, where they were going that in depth. They were probably just watching the game and be like, okay, this is what you sort of need to focus on. But now you're bringing in data and numbers.
Yeah, I'd say 5 years they probably were, but to your point, it is always evolving and it's always getting better, I guess, in quotation marks.
Depends how you look at it, but
exactly.
I do think that I don't know. Maybe it is a prediction that it's going to eventually become more like chess, which is more. It's less of an art. I don't know. Maybe some people that actually play chess at an extremely high level, they're like, oh no, chess is an art. But like, you know how a lot of people refer to football as being an art. But now with all the analytics and the training programs that they have and the sports science they have, maybe it's becoming less of an art and more maybe more robotic, maybe less expressive, maybe.
I'll go against your prediction for sport, and there's no way of proving this unless we do a recap pod in 10 years time or something. But I think the next, if it is going that way, I'm not completely going away from your prediction because it looks like football is going that way. But if it does go that way, the big deficiency then will become character. I think players with character who can show that on the pitch then become the big deficiency for me, and emotion. And then I think that can override all the logic and stuff. And to the point, make the game more unpredictable. And then all the logic goes out the window because it's a game of football at the end of the day. So
You know what? Like, I know we should be moving away from this topic, but like, there was something in regards to rugby. One of the in England, I think one of the head like rugby people, something, or like a former rugby player, he said that kids these days don't have character because they're being brought up in, I think, in a private, like rugby at a high level is only offered at private schools rather than public schools, and at public schools you can actually develop more character because you're not so insulated.
insulate,
Yeah. So, and I remember like playing school football and everything like that. That was, like, I look back fondly on those memories, and like and in those, and with the more competition that you're exposed to, and the more wins, the more losses, it does build your character. Whereas like if you're only exposed to an academy system, and like if you're at, like, for instance, at like the Arsenal academy or Man United or like one of these top clubs, you're only exposed to winning. You're not exposed to losses. Whereas at, like, for instance, at my school, like, there was only a handful of players that actually played football and like played it at like a pretty high level, like at a pretty high like local level or whatnot. So it was only like four or five of us. The rest of them were like, mid level or didn't even play football at all. They just sort of joined the football team. So like we weren't an outstanding team. So we were going to be exposed to losses. And I'm sure the same is for you. So like, yeah, you're winning with your club, but you're losing with your school team. So you at least you're exposed to that, like you're being exposed to it, having to overcome adversity. Whereas if you're never exposed to that, you don't build character.
Yeah, no, I would just to finish this topic, I would even expand that to just outside of competition and just more exposure to the real world. Because obviously in these academies, you're plucked from such a young age. It's your bubble for your whole life, for your whole young child, adolescent life. You're just living in this bubble, and if you make it professional at a high level, you still live in that bubble. So what exposure did you ever get to the real world? And what chance did you get to build that sort of character outside of it? So I think there's probably two transitions we could use from this topic. I guess the first one is a bit of a cheap line, but we could go from when you talk about exposure to losing, one team who hasn't had much exposure to losing at all this season is Napoli. And the other point as well is if we're talking about these players with that kind of character who fulfill a specific role that isn't necessarily revered in academies nowadays, I think for those reasons, that's why Kim Min-jae is the best centre-back in the world for me at the moment. Because I don't think I don't know his background, so I haven't researched it, but he might have come through an academy. But what he gives me the vibe of is a player who has experience, who didn't just go into an elite club straight away. And we know for a fact that he didn't just do that. He had to work his way from, obviously, South Korea over to Europe. And he knows what his role is in the team, but also he knows that he still has the ability to improve all the time. And I think he doesn't look great playing the ball, but he's mighty effective playing the ball. I don't see him lose many balls. I don't see him make many mistakes. He doesn't look great doing it to the point, but he still has the awareness to try and do it, to know when to do it, and to know that he does have the ability to do it, even though he might perceive his first role, which is great, as a defender. And my, he's a great defender. And for me, on form this season, he's still the best in the world. He's not very old himself. I think he's only 24 or 25. So you can build a defense around him. And my God, if Napoli could keep this team together, they're unbelievable because they were pretty fantastic. I could go as far as saying fantastic to get a comfortable 2-0 win at Eintracht. And yeah, I guess we could probably do. I'll go into the game because obviously. Did you see the highlights of it?
No, I haven't seen it. No, did
But anyway,
Eintracht get a red card or was that the other game?
Yeah, and you know who got the red card?
No, who?
Randall Colomwani. So they're missing him in the second leg. After I build him up as well,
Your boy.
he had a reasonably disappointing game, but I think Frankfurt had a reasonably disappointing game, and in the game it was the case like I sort of thought going into this game. It was number one. I thought Victor Osimhen was going to have a field day with the centre backs. He was pretty good, and he gets the first goal and he wins a penalty which Kvaratskhelia misses, and I think that's the third or fourth that Napoli have missed in the Champions League this season, which is crazy. But then he scores moments later. Osimhen does off a cross from Lozano. And then Di Lorenzo scores later in the game from a beautiful move. If you haven't seen the second goal, look up the second goal, because I thought Frank Zambo Anguissa's pass in the build-up to this goal, where he has Di Lorenzo running on his outside, sort of central midfielder, right back running on your outside. Simple pass there. He doesn't want the simple pass. Kvaratskhelia has made a run from the left inside, and he just sort of clips this ball with spin around the central midfielder in front of him into Kvaratskelia's path. Kvaratskhelia with this lovely back heel. Di Lorenzo, first time left foot, bottom corner. Fantastic goal from Napoli, because they're a fantastic team who can do this. They're the best team in Europe. And this isn't a bad Eintracht side, and they played them at home, and they limited them to absolutely nothing of memory. I know they get the late red card and the game becomes even easier for Napoli, but I thought there was a bit of a storm at the front. The atmosphere was fantastic in Frankfurt, as you'd expect. So you'd expect a little bit of a storm, but that's where your player like Kim Min-jae comes in. He stood up to the test. Alex Merritt is always a dependable goalkeeper. Di Lorenzo is always a dependable right back. Even the left back, Oliveira, is pretty good as well. Lobotka, for his size and his stature, is always there in defensive positions. And yeah, Napoli, I just think... I think in terms of the game, there were like I was saying, there was two ways that I thought Napoli could hurt Eintracht, and that was Victor Osimhen, who they did with, but they weren't scared. They started the game and they invited pressure, and it was interesting because I thought I was a little bit against it by trying to play into their midfielders, and that's obviously another place where I thought they could get joy, because they're playing against a 3-4-3, and they maybe have the best midfield trio in all of Europe. So picking up the ball with Anguissa and Zielinski in those pockets. But Frankfurt's press was good enough to sort of limit that. And I thought they put themselves under a little bit of pressure then. Whereas I would have thought in the first 20 minutes, they maybe could have played longer to Osimhen, sort of used him up against a pretty suspect back three for Eintracht and sort of pushed them back. But they started doing that at about 25 minutes, and then the game sort of changed. And then once they started doing that, pushing Eintracht back, then they could just expose their 3v2 in central midfield, and they had pretty much full control of the game. But this Napoli team, on the bigger picture, and you'll be able to weigh in on this because we've seen enough of them this season. My main thing, and going back to that point about Real Madrid, them versus Real Madrid, who are probably 1 and 2 in terms of favourites to win the thing from what we've seen so far. The reason I have Napoli above them is because I think they could do everything Real Madrid could do, but I think they could do it quicker and with more freshness and with more energy than Real Madrid could do it. So I think, yeah, experience might tell in a one-off game. If they were to meet in the final, there's absolutely no way I would put Real Madrid out of that conversation. In fact, I might make them favourites just for the experience and the fact that they've made it to another final. But Napoli, like the way that Real Madrid can, I think Napoli can react to situations. I think maybe they're a bit more proactive and maybe a bit... No, I wouldn't even say they're more one-dimensional, because I think the main fact is Napoli can beat you in any way that you want to be beaten. They can beat you by pressing and outworking and out-hustling you higher up the pitch. They can beat you by soaking pressure up and defending well, defending solidly, relying on Kim Min-jae, relying on Alex Merritt to make saves, and then hitting you with devastating pace on the counter-attack, because Victor Osimhen's link-up and hold-up play is fantastic now. He's really added that to his game, and Kvaratskhelia is one of the most dynamic players in all of Europe. And they also have one of the most dynamic midfielders in Anguissa. They have one of the most, maybe a very good technical midfielder in Zielinski, the most technical holding midfielder in Lobotka. And they could just beat you anyway. They're physical, they're tough, they're mentally resilient. They're incisive. They're unpredictable with how they go forward because you have a player like Kvaratskhelia, because you have a player like Anguissa, Osimhen. So you don't know what to expect from them. But what we have seen to expect from them this season is nothing short of sensational football, because I'm always blown away by this team. Even in the weeks that they haven't been at their swashbuckling best, they've still, for me, been comfortably the best team in Europe. And to win 2-0 away at Frankfurt, pretty much, I wouldn't say seal, but be very close to sealing your place. For the first time in your history, I must add, I was stunned to learn this, but I don't think Napoli have made it to a Champions League quarter-final. So to be at that point, I don't think Maradona ever did it, obviously. He won the UEFA Cup, but never in the European Cup. So, and this group of players is worthy of that accolade and worthy of making history for Napoli, and they should, by winning their first league title in whatever 33 years for Napoli. And oh man, the way they're playing, the team that they are, again, they're my favourites to win the Champions League this season. And I, for one, now that Liverpool are pretty much out of it, I'm wholeheartedly putting my full endorsement behind Napoli winning the Champions League, because I love this team. They're fantastic.
They're a very likable team, and you know how before we mentioned, well, not this pod, but like before the World Cup at least, when the draw was announced, we said that we would love to see Napoli Man City. Now, after these first round of games, I'd love to see Real Madrid versus Napoli, and
in the semis. That's when I want it as well. That's the perfect.
Not a final. You want two legs?
Because I want two legs. I
legs.
want two legs. Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind them at a neutral ground, but I think what you were saying, if they were to meet at the final, I think you'd probably give the edge to Real Madrid just because of the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas over two legs, you probably give it to Napoli.
Yeah, especially with both stadiums are capable of creating an immense atmosphere for a European night, but obviously the Maradona's two cathedrals of football. I would never be on board with seeing that as a one-off game over a two-leg. I wish finals were two-legged affairs. I would love finals to be two-legged affairs.
Well, if both these teams make it, then yeah, why not make it two-legged affair?
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then if it ends overall if it ends as a draw, then have a third final at a neutral venue.
Yeah, give us more. Give us more of this football.
Like just a best of three.
Best of three. Yeah. That's what I want. Super League.
And then the other game that's left over, Inter versus Porto. I think, was there another red card in that game as well?
Yeah. Otavio got sent off, and he was the proper wind-up merchant of this game. My God, all the Inter players hated. There was one point where, who went down? Damian went down, and Inter put the ball out of play about the halfway line. Damian got his treatment, and then obviously it's a Porto throw. So Otavio starts just getting this intensity about him, as he's pointing for the left back. Hey, go get the ball. And then he starts making a run in behind the Inter defense. And it's like, oh no, we know what's going to happen here. So he convinces the left back or the left midfielder to finally throw it to him. He does. And then the ref, rather smartly, just blows his whistle, I think he says the throw-in was taken at the wrong place, which is very good refereeing, I must add, because you don't want to see that. That would have kicked off so bad if he let Otavio go through a goal. And then obviously after that, it all kicks off. The Inter players are not happy with what he's tried to do. He gets a yellow card for that scuffle, and then he later makes a tackle, which sees him get the second, and he'll miss the second leg. And he's a decent player, but he is a wind-up merchant, so it's probably his karma. And the whole Porto team were wind-up merchants. But I got to say, maybe I was sleeping a little bit on Porto, because I was pretty impressed with how they played in this game. I know Inter come out with the 1-0 win. Probably deserved on the run of play, but is 1-0 at the San Siro, knowing that you go back to the Dragao enough? I'm not convinced. This tie is still very much in the balance going back to Porto, because I was impressed by Porto and I think they're a good team. They're also on a 20... They were on a 21 match unbeaten run going into this. So that's another reason why I was sleeping on them. I should have paid more attention to that. And the football they play is quite good. I think it's functional. They're solid enough. Keep a compact back four. They sort of play in that Man United style with the diamond up front, although it's a lot more narrow. Maybe it was more narrow because they wanted to go man-to-man on Inter's 5-3-2. And obviously a big part of Simone Inzaghi's football is building up with the three centre-backs and one holding midfielder just in front of them and letting the other six go forward. But eventually the Inter pressure from doing that paid. Lukaku scores the goal. Barella was fantastic in this game, making so many forward runs. Crosses the ball for Lukaku's goal, who he heads it onto the post and then gets the rebound and sort of volleys it into the ground and in. But yeah, Barella was probably man of the match. Apart from that, I don't know. It's maybe questionable into wing backs. I mean, DeMarco's a good wing back on the left, but Simone Inzaghi really doesn't like playing Denzel Dumfries, and he prefers Darmian at the moment. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe a bit more of trust and predictability out of Darmian. But yeah, this one's still in the balance. Not the most thrilling tie, but you know, Inter is still there. If they go through, I mean, they've still got a chance of doing anything in this competition because they have such a great record against big teams this season and they rise for the big games. But yeah, they didn't quite rise to it this game. They weren't bad, but they weren't great. And I'm sure they would have liked a bigger advantage, especially with the power play of the red card later in the game. It sort of looked like at the end of the game, they definitely weren't celebrating the win. They knew they maybe let a chance slip to get a bigger advantage going to the Dragao. So, this one's still right in the balance. And if Inter go out, they'll be kicking themselves, I've got to think.
Well, definitely one to watch for, but I got nothing to add since I didn't watch the game. But I probably should next week. Well, no, it's in 3 weeks' time, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so because it's not next week, but
the week after
2 weeks away. The other ones from last week, right?
So it's like 3 weeks away. So yeah, I'll make sure that I at least watch the replay then for this because there's not too many games overall anyway. So I'll make the effort and then I can add my 2 cents.
Watch the highlights, man. The mini match.
Yeah, well, they don't offer mini matches here like they did on Optus Sport.
Yeah.
Or actually, no, it's on Stan now, isn't it, in Australia?
Yeah.
But the last enticing European fixture that we need to talk about, United versus Barcelona.
Take it away.
It was a pretty fun game, and
again.
it was a fun game, but you know what? I think I've said it before. I think there's just something missing from Barca, and I think it's what we said last week, where they're building this. They're trying to build that foundation from the back going into the midfield and then up front because they're just missing that. They're missing that control that they had under Pep and obviously that golden generation. But I can see the interplay that existed back with that generation. So the triangles and the passing and whatnot, and them trying to play in that similar manner. But obviously, because this is only Xavi's pretty much now he's there pretty much for a full year because he came in halfway through the season last year. That's going to come with time, and obviously with your two best midfielders, Pedri and Gavi missing, you won't get that. Whereas maybe if it was De Jong, Gavi, and Pedri, maybe you would get more control in that midfield. Because in the second half, Man United just ran all over them, it seemed. You know what? I think overall, deservedly go through.
I agree. I don't think Barcelona posed enough threat over the 2 legs. I think to the point, while they've conceded 4 goals over the 2 legs and they're defending in Europe this season, their performances in Europe this season have left a bit to be desired. I thought, all right, they were maybe unlucky against Inter, probably home and away maybe. They were a little bit unlucky, although they were very naive in the home leg. that new camp against Inter. And I thought, again, Lewandowski missed a lot of chances. And I thought Lewandowski wasn't great tonight either, and they needed him to be great. But I guess now they can focus on the league and winning that, which they obviously have a very good chance of doing. Whether it's... Well, it was good to see Araujo back in the middle, and I thought he clogged up gaps. There was one in the first half that he came across Rashford and made him look like a little boy. So that was much better. I don't know why they didn't do that in the first leg. In fact, I think Xavi should be kicking himself for his tactics in the first leg, because I at least think one of those, the first Rashford goal in the first leg was avoidable if Araujo was in that central defensive position. But Barca was solid. They fought, but they just didn't have enough cutting edge going forward. And when United sort of realised that, especially in the second half, and they just sort of they just went forward because they knew Barcelona can't really cause us that many problems. I mean, Rafinha may be on the break, but Rafinha's a bit like Ousmane Dembele, and you don't know what you're going to get when he does go on the break. Is he going to find that killer pass, find a shot, or is it just going to come to nothing? It's 50-50 with him. So you're playing with a little bit of risk, but you can trust yourself, especially because Lisandro Martinez was fantastic on the night. Varane was fantastic on the night. Luke Shaw has been one of the best left-backs in the world. David De Gea pops up with a few good saves. So you can play that way because you can trust your defenders a little bit more. And Casemiro, obviously part of that defensive unit, has been fantastic. Clogging up those gaps around Lisandro and Varane just so well, like he did for Real Madrid. So, yeah, I totally agree. Deservingly so, because you can see the stark contrast, particularly in the second half. When United went forward, they were threatening. And what I was thinking as well is just how annoying this is, because I don't want to do the woe is me and bring it all back to Liverpool, but I feel like we played a big part in getting this United project up and running with our performance at Old Trafford earlier in the season, and giving United the confidence that they could do that, and giving Old Trafford the belief that they could get behind their team in that manner and propel this team onto better things. Because I thought Old Trafford on the night was sensational. It was probably the most emotional I've seen Fergie since he's retired, celebrating the second goal that ultimately saw them go through tonight. So I think there's something... I'm not a genius for saying this, but it looks like there's something quite special building at United, and all I'm thinking is, fuck no, I don't want to go through this again, but it looks like we're going to be going through it again maybe. So, yeah, fair play to them. They deservedly go through this tie, and now they're quite battle-hardened going forward. Do they want to put a lot of eggs in trying to back into a title race? I don't know. I think Paul Scholes said that they're on for the quadruple this season, which technically he's not right, but they've got a lot of work to go.
It's the slightly lesser quadruple.
Yeah, the slightly lesser quadruple, exactly. But I mean, winning a European Cup, whether it be the Europa League anyways, would still be a great achievement, especially if you had to go through Barcelona. Let's see what the draw brings, because the draw could be exciting.
The draw is today.
In the next round. Is it today? It should be.
Because today, but I'm not sure at what time, so it'll probably be done after we're done.
Yeah, of course. So, but that'll be exciting. Imagine if we get like a United v Juve or something like that, because that would be a lot of fun. And let's make it a tough path into the final. But let's see more of these good games, because this one felt like a Champions League fixture without a doubt, and it was a special atmosphere at Old Trafford. They really got up for this game, even though it was just the Europa League. So, yeah, fair play. Deservedly through. Fun tie over the two legs. What more to say, really?
Yeah, hang on. So the draw is it's gonna be like in an hour. So yeah, we're gonna be done by then.
Oh, we jumped the gun.
Yeah, we're a little bit early, but you know what? Maybe this could. Maybe for the next season, maybe next season actually, because I don't think Liverpool with Klopp and City with Pep are going to be this poor for too long. Not City. It's hard to say City have been poor, but like by their standards, they've been poor. So it's hard to see them be this poor for too long. So maybe next season again they have a blip, and then in 2 years' time or in 2 seasons' time, that's when that's when they're back on form and back to challenging. But maybe next season you see a real battle between Arsenal and United for the title.
That's definitely what it kind of looked like. Although you'd think City will be better. Liverpool are a big question mark. We don't know if they'll be better or not. We don't know where they'll finish. But yeah, I think going into the next, I think City will still be there because it's City and because Erling Haaland's not old. But yeah, United and Arsenal are definitely the most exciting prospects because City aren't an exciting prospect. We just expect them to still be there. But yeah, United and Arsenal would be a great clash next season. Dare I say it? Maybe this season. I know. We both don't believe that they probably won't, but we can't say it with certainty now. So yeah, there's questions of that. They're an exciting prospect if they can get the right investment in again, and most importantly, I think probably is Marcus Rashford sustaining this form for the rest of this season and into next season. Then you'd think they'd probably have 1 or 2 more seasons of Casemiro at good performances as well. Then maybe you could see him challenging with the right players in the right positions. And development of players they already have because they're not very old either. Players at peak age and some players coming into peak age. So yeah, United annoyingly are a very enticing prospect if you're a supporter of United at the moment.
Yeah, just quickly before we do move on. Damn, those 2 things and now I've forgotten the second one. But the first one is, do you think that was a penalty?
50-50. So when they're given, it's fine.
Yeah, you know what? Because Bruno was extremely stupid because the player's going away from goal, and it's you don't need to touch him there. So why even give the referee the option to give the decision? So yeah, that was poor by him. I can't remember the second thing that I was gonna mention. I can't remember. Those 2 things. It wasn't regarding the game. I think it was regarding the. It's completely left my mind. I need to have a notepad and start writing down things.
Notes. Yeah.
I need to start doing that. Just having some piece of paper, just so I'm not forgetting things. I'm usually good, but I don't know today. That's the second thing that I've forgotten. Now, at least the first one I could remember it. Now I can't remember what it was.
God, you'll think of it straight after we're done, and it'll come. If it's good, it'll come up on the next pod.
I don't think it was regarding signings. Yes, that's it. That's it. Do you think that the turning point for Ten Hag was him having his Aubameyang moment with Ronaldo?
Not the turning point. The turning point for me was the introspection after, the appeared introspection. I don't know what he did personally, but it looked to me like after the Brentford game, he said these players are not suited to what I believe my ideals of football are. So I need to adjust that, which is, look, I'm disappointed that it took him those 2 poor performances to do that, but in the end, he got there just in time to start building momentum. And I'm going to say it again, the big turning point was against Liverpool at Old Trafford. It just gave him the belief. It was back when we still thought Liverpool were a good team. Remember, we thought, when we were doing the preview for that game, we thought Liverpool were going in there to win 3 or 4-0 at Old Trafford because and it just never turned out that way. And that gave United belief. And then I think the Ronaldo incident just grew to what he was doing because I referenced it when I was talking about Rashford last pod. Everyone now knows who the boss is. He's got the assertiveness. He's got the authority. The fans know it. The club knows it. The players know it. Everybody knows it. He's got Fergie on side as well. So he is walking in a dreamland at United. It's all roses. It looks like he's a tactical genius in recent weeks. I wouldn't go that far, but he is making the right matchup moves within his tactical structure. So fair play to him for that. everything's rosy for Ten Hag at the moment. And that Ronaldo incident definitely wasn't the turning point, but was maybe the exclamation mark on where he is at United now.
You know what? It's interesting though. Like these managers, like these top managers, they all have their. It seems like they all have their like sort of stamping of authority moment. So, for instance, you have. Obviously you can go back in the past and reference moments like that, maybe with Fergie and with Wenger and so on. But like in recent memory, Pep at Barca gets rid of Deco and Ronaldinho in his first season. Wants to get rid of Eto'o, but doesn't eventually. But then he gets rid of him in the second season. I'm not sure who he got rid of at Bayern. Maybe I don't think he got rid of anyone at Bayern. Like I think, but that's different. Like Germans are generally very disciplined, and when it comes to authority figures, they tend not to exactly push back. But when he came to Man City, gets rid of Joe Hart pretty much immediately, and he was like, I'm not sure he was the captain, but he was a big figure at City, but he gets rid of him immediately. Arteta, a disciple of Pep, Aubameyang, that has his moment of like a big personality or a big player, gets rid of him. And now with Ten Hag has another disciple of Pep, has his moment with Ronaldo and stamps his authority. And it's a change now where the players now know, oh shit, this is a manager that the board and the club is going to stick behind, so they're more likely to get rid of me rather than the manager. So the manager's days aren't numbered. My days are numbered if I don't put in a performance. That's what it feels like watching United now. Like all the players, like all these players, like Fred and Bruno and like Bruno too.
It was really good this morning.
But like Bruno, he did put in performance, but he's doing more off the ball. And then Martial, he's been injured and been in and out. But like a lot of these players that like Roy Keane went in on for not putting in any effort and not being deserving of wearing the shirt, they're being deserving of wearing the shirt now.
Yeah, and I think not to put a dampener on this, but not to overrate Ten Hag at the same time, because he is in a perfect moment and it's easy to do so. I'll give him credit for one signing, which is Lissandro Martinez, one that I totally missed on. What a signing he has been. And he's been so crucial to what they're doing defensively. But one who, by all reports, he wasn't behind, and that's Casemiro. And Man United are not here without Casemiro. So I would still be tempted to put, I don't know, because Ten Hag has won that battle with Ronaldo, he's unified the club, and now he's improving Rashford. Maybe I'd give him, if we're doing the opposite of blame pie, like reward pie, or who gets the biggest
credit
praise pie. Yeah, credit pie, praise pie.
Yeah.
I might still give more to Ten Hag but it wouldn't be much between him and Casemiro, because I think Casemiro, player-wise, is the player who transformed this club, and to the point he wasn't a signing that Ten Hag really had that much interest in, but he is the key signing.
Yeah, because he was struggling to displace McTominay.
Yeah, at the start, but I think that was just Ten Hag just easing him in, letting him get used to training and everything.
Yeah,
and then when he came in, because Klopp used to love doing that. He did it with Fabinho for nearly half a season. It's like, when's this guy going to play? But he waited, and then the good old days. I'm reminiscing now.
Yeah. Look, let's do we've been going for almost 2 hours. Let's do a quick wrap of the important games around the leagues. Since there's Chelsea, Tottenham, there's Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid. I think you mentioned PSG, Marseille, and was there one from the Italian league?
Yeah, there was also Milan, Atalanta, 3 points between them for a race for top 4. Marseille, PSG is obviously top 2 in France, only 5 points behind them. Eintracht against Leipzig, obviously in the German Bundesliga, and as well the top 2 in Germany also play each other, with Union playing Bayern. So some good games around the continent, some exciting ones. and obviously pivotal games for in Germany and France, particularly for the top of the table. Top four race in Serie A, and obviously just a derby that we'll look forward to watching in Atletico Real Madrid. And I give Atletico every chance because they are a form side in Spain. But after Christmas, Atletico have only lost to Barcelona and Real Madrid. So let's see if Real Madrid can carry the confidence from Anfield, can most importantly be rested enough after Anfield to go again. That's going to be interesting in itself. But yeah, I think Atletico aren't going to chase down Real Madrid because they've started too far behind. But in terms of the football they're playing, it's not that far behind Real Madrid at the moment. Except it's hard to say that after what we saw at Anfield. But also, Real Madrid weren't awesome in that game. But like they're capitalizing on
in the second half. They were. Awesome.
When they demoralized us and let us know that they're our boss, then it was very comfortable.
Yeah, you're their whipping boys.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, especially in recent seasons. Like it's amazing. The psychological edge that they have, and it's essentially the same core of both teams as well.
It really is. This started in 2014.
It's
2014 Champions League.
Salah just can't get his revenge.
Oh yeah, well, you didn't quite put us completely out of the tie.
But just going back on that for one thing I forgot to mention. There was in that first 30 minutes, I was like, "Ooh, Salah he's back to what I was seeing before, where he's actually running directly at the defense, and he's trying to take them on 1v1 or 2v1, whereas before, I think I mentioned earlier in the season, he never wanted to take the 1v1. He was always trying to look for a pass or something. It was like he had no confidence to try and beat a player, whereas in this game I was like, "Ooh, this is dangerous for Madrid," and then the whole team just collapsed essentially.
I still thought he was a bit slow to do it, though. I don't like this new trend that he has of controlling the ball with his stud so much. And it just takes him longer to go at opponents sometimes when he should be going at them. And in front of goal, he's awful. But the assist for Darwin was delightful. And then obviously fair play to him for putting the pressure on to score the second. And at that moment, I was very pleased. I was euphoric. It was a great moment, and then it just turned to shit after that. Especially because it was Courtois as well. I was so happy to see him make the mistake. I was disappointed that it was however many months, 7 months too late, or 8 months too late, but oh well, they got their revenge on us.
Doesn't matter. So did you want to go into detail in regards to any of those games around the leagues? Or,
no, I don't. I don't think there's too much to analyze. I think by now you know my opinions on pretty much all of these teams tactically. It's just psychological factors because obviously Atalanta come off a loss. Milan are trying to rebuild themselves, so I'm interested obviously from that dynamic and the fact it's only 3 points between them, with Milan I think in 4th at the moment, or maybe 3rd, and Atalanta in 6th, so that's how close it is over there. Obviously I'm interested to see if Atletico could continue what I think is their good form post-World Cup, and see if they can actually claim a scalp of Real Madrid. So that's fascinating in that aspect. And also fascinating to see what kind of team Real Madrid pick. And then the top games in the Bundesliga and France speak for themselves. Obviously, we got to see no Neymar, so it's just Messi and Mbappe. Will that be enough against Marseille? Can Marseille outwork them like they did in the Cup game about a month ago? I don't know. We could have a title race that's only 2 points in it in France, and obviously, PSG have their whole circus. Galtier does not look like a guy who is on the flip side of Ten Hag. He looks like a guy who's very dispensable, and who doesn't have the players' ear, and who needs this. He doesn't need, but the sporting director feels compelled to come down to the touchline against Lille on the weekend and start shouting at everyone and sort of doing what Galtier maybe should be doing in the eyes of a lot.
What the sporting director doing that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was the big story. And I did touch on it after the game, but I should have. But that was the big story that came out of that. So if you get a chance to watch the Messi free kick winner and you get to see Galtier's sprinting down the touchline to go and celebrate, it didn't look like the players were having a bar of it. So it wasn't a good optic. So, look, I definitely... I would actually think that we'll have a 2-point title race in France. I think Marseille will beat them. I think they'll be motivated enough to beat them. In Germany, I don't know what's going to happen with Bayern versus Union. That's going to be a great clash to see if Bayern adjust anything after they cost themselves against Mönchengladbach. And Leipzig were thoroughly uninspiring against City, which was a bit disappointing. And obviously, Eintracht will need a response. Leipzig won't need a response because they drew 1-1, but Eintracht will need a response. And they're the furthest away from top of the table. So, I don't know. It's just interesting with that top 6 in the Bundesliga. But whether I could call the games or not, I don't think so. It's a bit unpredictable. But
did you say that Union beat Ajax 3-1 as well?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
So their fairy tale continues, but obviously they had to exert themselves to do so, and now they have a top of the table clash. And they didn't react well when they played Schalke last weekend after playing Ajax in the first leg. So that'll be interesting as well to see how they react from that.
You know who I reckon it could be a sneaky dark horse for the Europa League? I think Roma under Mourinho.
Oh, of course, yeah. Of course.
Just because of the Mourinho factor, I think they could be sneaky. Okay, just really, we got the Carabao Cup final as well. Newcastle versus
of course,
United. Let's just give quick predictions on those top games around the league. So EPL, Tottenham versus Chelsea. Neither of them played midweek as well, so both well rested.
I'm going to say Chelsea win 1-0 and they finally get a win.
Now, is it at Tottenham or is it at Chelsea? Let me just have a quick look. Clicked on the wrong thing. Yeah.
Not so quick.
All right, it's at Tottenham, so they're at home. But
I'm
they got
for a Chelsea one.
Yeah, yes, they got the crowd, but in terms of travel time, it's half an hour travel time or whatnot for the players. It's not like they're traveling to Newcastle or something like that. The Carabao Cup. Wait, so you're saying Chelsea 1-0?
Yeah.
I reckon Chelsea can get a result here as well. I'm on that click narrative. When is it all going to click for them? So, I'm not sure that they're going to ramp past them 2-3, 4-0. Actually, I reckon a 2-0 or 2-1. I'm going for.
Yeah, it's possible.
I'm going for a 2-1. I reckon Kane will score for Chelsea. So 2-1 for Chelsea. The Carabao Cup final. Who do you think wins that? Newcastle arrested. They didn't play during the week. Man United played at home, so they didn't have to travel to Spain. But it's on Sunday, so they get, 3 days rest?
Let's go Newcastle 2-0. Maybe these predictions are wishful predictions. There's no real basis on that, but just a feeling.
I think Guimaraes is back.
I'm just throwing these out there, really.
Yeah, Guimaraes is back, but Karius is in goal, if I'm not mistaken. So
handicapped.
Yeah. I'm hoping Newcastle can win it.
Of course.
I'm hoping they can win it. So I reckon a 2-1 Newcastle. La Liga, the Madrid derby. I think Real Madrid wins that.
I think 1-1. I'm interested to see what team Real Madrid pick, and if they can't pick their strongest 11, then I think Atletico can get a result, even though it's at the Bernabeu.
I'm going for a 1-0 Real Madrid.
Yeah, I was umming and ahhing between those two.
Yeah.
1-0 Real Madrid and 1-1. I went with 1-1.
I don't believe in draws. Serie A. Atalanta versus AC Milan.
Yeah.
Is it at the San Siro or is it? Let's have a quick look.
Just check now.
It's at the San Siro.
What I'm gonna go 2-0 Atalanta.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Milan are quite out of the woods. I think they can be got at, and I think Atalanta need a reaction after their loss at home to. I think they were at home to Lecce last weekend, so And I think footballing-wise, if Atalanta play the way they can, the more I think about it, I'm scared about the Leao matchup. If Atalanta play an open style, Rafael Leao has the potential to murder them. So does Theo Hernandez. So it all comes down to that matchup. I'll stick with an Atalanta 2-1 win, though.
I'm going Milan 2-0.
Yeah, fair call as well.
French League.
Ligue 1. Yeah.
Marseille PSG. Is it at... Where is it at? Let's see who has the home field advantage.
I have a feeling that's Marseille. Let's see, what have we got? Yeah, it's at Marseille at the Velodrome. I'm going to go Marseille 2-0. No, actually, I'm going to go Marseille 3-2 because they got Mbappe, and I think he'll cause some havoc. Much like the Milan-Atalanta game, because Marseille also play very high pressing, 3 at the back, man-to-man system. So if you do that against Mbappe, you're asking for a bit of trouble.
I'll go 3-1 Marseille.
Yeah, it's amazing. We just think PSG are just going to lose this game now. That's how bad a form they are in.
And the final one, Union Berlin versus... where's that at?
That's at the Allianz. So I think Bayern will win. It hurts my soul to say this, but I think Bayern will win 3-0.
I was going to say 3-0 as well.
But I'm hoping not. I'm hoping for not.
I think
I'm hoping Union win it.
I think they win 3-0 just because Union played on Thursday. Bayern didn't have a midweek match. They're going to be well rested. They can prepare for the whole week. If they don't win, that is a travesty considering the odds are all stacked in their favor. So no midweek game, playing at home, and the other team obviously they had a midweek game on a Thursday that exerted a lot of energy you'd expect. So yeah, I'm going Bayern 3-0.
Yeah, that one. If they don't win that, the pressure just ratchets up another. That is
a massive bottle if they don't win that. But damn, they're all on 43 points. Bayern, Dortmund, and Union. Yeah,
Dortmund have Hoffenheim, so they could get a win from that as well. And they could be top if the other two draw.
Yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting weekend of football fixtures. So
yeah, definitely. Some good games after last weekend where we didn't get many big on paper fixtures at least.
Look, I'm gonna chuck Arsenal Leicester in there as well. It's at Leicester. Look, if this was Leicester from like 2 seasons ago, you'd be like, oh, that's a really juicy game. But like,
yeah, of course,
because they're so up and down this season. Like they beat Tottenham 4-1, then they lose to United 3-0. And now they're playing at home though, so maybe they put in a better performance than and they didn't actually play that bad against United, at least the first half.
As long as Arsenal learn their lessons from the first half to the second half performance at Villa Park, I think they expose Leicester's softness and they beat them fairly comfortably. But if they don't play with the required intensity and they let Leicester into the game, Leicester are technically good enough going forward that could cause problems. But I don't expect Arsenal to take their foot off the gas.
Yeah, like it's always the games after the bounce back. So like, you know how you have like 1 or 2 losses and then you have the win, and you're like, you need to then back up that win. So this game is probably more important than the Aston Villa one. And again, it's another away game as well. Thank fuck it's not an early kickoff. So yeah,
it's a big game, Nev. It's a big game.
Every game's a big game.
Yeah, there it is.
And let's wrap it up on that, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and we'll be back next week to review the weekend action. Thanks for coming, and bye for now.